Hey, everybody, it's me, Dr. Ahia, with One Life. And as we were talking, as we were visiting, we were talking about this legacy of slavery and how it has impacted so many individuals, especially those individuals of color. And we talked about how it was traumatic for many of us in our past to go from Africa on slave ships to other parts of the world. And the start was by the Portuguese in the 1400s. As we continued to talk about this, we looked at the amount of people that were transported globally. And we talked about how 10 million to 12 million people were brought from Africa to other countries. So I thought it would be interesting to actually bring on someone, visit with a guest of mine, a friend of mine, who actually is from Guyana by birth, lived in Canada, and she is here now in America, and just an idea of what her experiences have been going forward. Hey, Myrna girl.
Hey, Dr. Trey.
I'm so glad you are here. You
Pleasure to
are
be on your show.
Yes, you are a life coach, you're an author, you are a brilliant individual, and I just enjoy talking with you. And I thought
Thank you.
that my guests and my viewers would enjoy hearing from you as well, your experience and your thoughts about, the biasness that's in this country that you may or may not have experienced coming from without. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure. Yes, one of the things that African Americans, how they distinguish themselves from, Caribbean, even though I'm not technically from the Caribbean, we have Caribbean culture. Guyana is in South America. But Guyana was just one of the countries that, yes, slave ships went to when they kind of, took over the Caribbean islands, including Guyana, which is,
Wow.
so I grew up with a Caribbean heritage, and Guyana is 50% Indians because they also took Indians from India, and 50% Blacks. So in Guyana, we did have racism because the Indians and the Blacks, they didn't mix very well, and the political parties, put us against each other. And then I went to Canada when I was 17, and lived in predominantly white neighborhoods, and went to worked with predominantly white people, and all that. And I didn't experience personally any overt racism. Everybody said that in Canada, the racism is there, but it's subtle.
It
Right?
is.
It's not overt. It's not in your face.
Yes.
So then I came to America, and because I don't have those lenses on, that I'm not looking for racism, or I haven't, whatever. I don't think, and then as women, I don't think that the women are attacked as much as the men. My husband would tell you a different story, that he experienced racism, all his life, because he's a strong Black man, and that kind of elicits a different kind of response from the white male. So that's basically my experience with racism. I don't look for it, so I don't really see it. It's got to be, it's got to come to me. Right now, I'm having some trouble with my HOA, and I'm assuming it's because I'm Black, because these are the kind of policies that they have, that they treat Black families different from the whites. They're not gonna find them more. They're gonna try to get rid of them in the community, that kind of thing. And that's the first time I've really come in direct contact with
Mm-hmm.
racial prejudice.
Yes,
So that's my
just
experience.
biasness, yeah, as a
Right,
result of the color of your skin. Because
right,
they,
right.
clearly people who are biased like that, ethnically biased, I don't use the word racism because, I think we're all part of the human race.
Right.
So for
Mhm.
me, it's, that these individuals are biased. They don't need to literally know us. Like I know that you are a genuine, heartfelt woman who's caring and you're not biased, and do you find it interesting that an individual can be biased in this country without knowing you?
Yeah, because this country has got deep history. So that is basically what it is. This country has got collective, um, you know, historical biases. It's this is my opinion anyway.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
the whites, inherited their hatred from their grandparents, and the black people inherited theirs from their ancestors. You know what I mean? So it's something that continues to perpetuate. And yeah, so that's what this country is. It is built on, it's foundationally built on this kind of hatred and this kind of
Yes.
pain and this type of saying that you're better than me because
Hmm.
you're white and I'm black. I mean,
Hmm.
which is one of the reasons I personally don't like to look at any of those movies that depict, because it's horrible when you're going to
Yes.
say I'm your property and I
Yes.
have no rights and you
Right.
can do whatever you want to my children. I mean,
Wow. And
I
and
don't see
I
the
agree with
purpose.
you.
Right.
I
Yeah.
agree with you. Individuals were asked, like I never sat through Roots. I
Right.
couldn't watch Roots. I mean, like you said, it perpetuates that mindset
Yeah.
of biasness toward one group or the other.
Or not.
You
Right.
mentioned something I felt that was really interesting. You talked about the gender bias. How the males may tend to get more from their contemporaries, their Caucasian contemporaries, than the females have. Have you ever looked into that in a little bit more depth to get a clearer understanding, maybe?
No, I have not, but my husband would surely like to tell me about it, and one of the great things about me is that I'm very learned. You know what I mean? I listen to books, I watch stuff, I pick up things. So I can technically talk about anything, even though I haven't studied it. But
Yes.
my understanding of the black man with the word mandingo, the mandingo black man is a strong black man, and I'm understanding that the white men are feel kind of threatened by them, and that is why they they have this animosity towards them. It's like comparing, I don't know, their worth, I guess.
Yes. Hmm. And I think you have a good point. I think we can see that a lot when you talked about the biasness and how they are treating African American males in cars or on streets,
Right, right.
or we look into the jail system and how many
Yeah,
African American males or men of color are
right,
perceived to be African American, because there's a
right,
perception. You don't
right,
necessarily have to be an African American male or a complete African American to have that perception from the Caucasian counterparts. They are in jail. They're jailed and they're shot and killed now.
right,
And
right.
those who kill them get a smack on the hand.
Right,
So you're
right.
absolutely
Yeah,
right.
well, that's racial profiling. But one of the things that always upset my husband is because he was a police officer and he's out there every night, putting his life on the line, and yet he was treated differently, and that's
Yeah,
what really upset him. And it's the
yeah,
same thing in work and jobs. People
yes,
would pass over both male and females for
yeah,
jobs, favoring their white counterparts. So, I mean, it's a totally different thing. The police and the streets and the fear, because
yes,
again, I have tapped into that a little bit, and it's the fear. Like if a police officer pulls his gun is doesn't mean not, that he wants to kill the black man, but because he's afraid of what the black man is going to do to him, so he shoots first. You know what I mean? It is a fear-based culture. And it's the same thing, I've heard stories of black men walking down the street and white women are afraid that they're going to mug them. Yes. And it's all based on history.
Yes, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Unless the person is 6'10" and he's young, he looks like he's a basketball player. I had that experience in college. They would run away from the basketball girls, but they would look up to those basketball guys and think, "Hi, can I have your autograph?" And so the ignorance is absolutely it's mind blowing, and it is all a relationship to the legacy of slavery. There's a legacy; it hasn't disappeared. It's not going away, unfortunately, but it's something that I feel that has a psychological impact as a psychologist on people of color. And that's the piece that I'm trying to bring forth with these segments, talking about the legacy of slavery and the trauma that it has left masses of individuals. And it's still to this day. And those are some of the things later on, not in this particular segment, that perhaps you'll come back again, you'll visit, and we'll talk about how the legacy of slavery has impacted people psychologically, because you're a life coach. So you help a tremendous amount of people. And can you share with us how you do that? How can the viewers reach you, young lady?
Well, yes, I'm a life coach. I coach mostly on the radio, on my podcast. I have a radio podcast and I have a television show as well. Yes. And that is called Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life. And if we're talking about mindset, that's basically what it is. But from my limited perception of the problem, a lot of these things are inherited. It's all when you use the word legacy, it is, if your parents had trauma, then you inherit that. If your parents had fear, then you come in and you have fear, because they transform or they transfer 50% of their biological DNA. So that's how this thing gets. And then, of course, then we come into the environment, and then the environment, affects us. For instance, if you're younger and you're living in the projects, or you're living in, you go to school, didn't know that you were different, and then all of a sudden they start treating you different, because when these kids go to school is when they know that they're not white. You know what I mean?
It's so true. It's so true. Wow.
So all those things, affect your mindset and how you think about things. So what I do is I help people transform their mind, because one of the things I'm going to say is change the way you think about a thing, and the thing you think of will change, which is why I said I don't see racism, because I don't go looking for it, mainly because of my heritage. I wasn't, I didn't inherit any of that, because my parents were not slaves. And my grandparents, I don't think they were. I don't know how far removed we were from the slave ships, but I didn't inherit that.
Yes, so I hear you.
I have a different perception. I have a different psychological footprint of it. Yeah. And so one of the ways that we can all change the legacy is to stop thinking about it. And that's basically why I said that those movies don't serve us anything, because it kind of cements or continues the dialogue about the wrongdoing. You know what I mean? And you continue reliving it, and then it makes you feel different. I mean, how do you feel after watching those movies and you go out and you know what I mean? So that's basically it. So that's basically what I do, transforming your mind in anything, whether it's your perception of your past, your current situation,
Yes.
the future. The mind is the first thing that you have to transform, and that's what I do. So my podcast is called Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life, and it plays on and on 20 podcast players, and I have a YouTube channel as well, and a radio show, and I'm on Facebook.
Excellent. So
If
they
anybody
can
wants to connect, right?
They'll be able to find Miss Myrna Young on any
Yes.
of those
Yes.
platforms. That's excellent. Yes. It's always a pleasure speaking with you, sharing and sharing thoughts with you. And I hope this is not the last time you will visit with us.
Yes. So, well, thank you for the opportunity to be on your wonderful show. I think that it's a great thing that you're trying to do, and continue the good work.
Thank you, my dear. And we'll talk again.
Okay. Bye-bye.